Today, we get to be a fly on the wall and examine both sides of the recruiting process of a $27 million producing agent. This is the Philip Gagnon Show.
This is the #1 podcast for real estate brokers and leaders. You're listening to the Philip Gagnon Show.
Hello and welcome to this edition of the Philip Gagnon Show. I'm your host, Philip Gagnon. With me today is not one, but two special guests. Our first one is an agent in the Northern Nevada area, Mr. Justin Hertz. How are you, Justin?
Excellent. How are you?
Good. Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Mm-hmm. Our other guest today is a previous guest a couple of weeks ago, and he is the principal and co-owner of Dickson Realty, also in Northern Nevada, Mr. Beau Keenan. How are you, Beau?
Phil, doing well. How are you today, man?
I'm good. Thank you guys for making the time. So this is going to be an interesting conversation because we're going to talk recruiting and a little bit retention with both an agent and a broker owner, and we'll get to kind of see both sides of the process to see what this looks like and how to be more effective in both. So Justin, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, how long you've been doing this, what kind of volume you guys are doing.
Sure. So I was a small business owner prior to getting into real estate. I had an opportunity in around 2009 to sell my business, needed a new adventure, chose at a very poor time to get my real estate license, end of 2009, early 2010. Obviously in a very complicated and difficult market full of short sales and foreclosures. But I took the challenge head on and I think I learned a lot by, learning my skill set in a difficult market, and the hopes were that it would translate, that my success would continue to grow. And as the market improved, it would be, kind of a different feel. So, I started as a solo agent in 2010. I did about 3.5 million in my first year. I continued to grow my business year after year, at least doubling it, for most years more than that. Around year 4 or year 5, my wife suggested the crazy idea of quitting her job and joining me full time, which I was resistant to at first because I thought I would rather keep my marriage going than grow my business. But I took the risk and it ended up working. And so she came on to do back end stuff, files, client retention, stuff like that. And about a year later, she got her license. We kind of divide and conquer. So it helps keep us not at each other's throats in the sense that I do all listings and I work with, probably 30 to 40% of the buyers. She does the other buyers. So we're not really in the same files, not really dealing with the same clients per se. We've just grown year after year. I'm about 10 years in. We did about 27 million last year in production. We're on pace to do about 36 million this year. And it's just myself, my wife, and not even a full-time transaction coordinator, a part-time transaction coordinator. And that's it. So it's not like overinflated numbers from being a team with 10 realtors on the team. It's just us.
And so the 27 million that you did last year, roughly how many units is that? Just for scale?
60 sides. So I think our average price point is about 460,000 or 470 thereabouts. So yeah, 60 sides between two people it's a lot of work, but we have a great transaction coordinator who's really dialed in, and you just hand her the file once you're in escrow and she just, goes. So it allows us to have more time to prospect and work with buyers and sellers and get people into escrow and do what we're supposed to do as realtors.
That's great. And having that kind of an asset in your transaction coordinator that, you get into escrow, you give them the file, and then you don't even have to think about it again. I mean, that's worth a lot for sure. As you
Yeah.
said, you're able to prospect and continue doing that stuff. So that's wonderful. And it sounds like the harder the economy gets or the worse times are, the better you do. I mean, your first year, 2010, doing 3.5 million, that's a great year for a lot of agents. And then this year, going up to 36 million, 72 units. So it sounds like you really thrive in these sort of difficult climates.
Yeah, I mean, we're not in a difficult climate now in the sense that, our market, at least here in Northern Nevada and in Reno Sparks, is thriving. We have had tons of growth, um, but the difficulties are that we have limited inventory, and if you have a buyer, you got to kind of prepare them for the fact that they're going to be up against multiple offers, and you have to really write a strong, clean offer in order to get yours accepted. So, those are the challenges there. But as I kind of always have said, that a good agent just pivots when it's time to pivot, So if the market goes very seller heavy, you just focus on listings. If the market goes very buyer heavy, you work with more buyers. So, if you're capable of making that shift, you'll always succeed. You really will.
It's kind of like the old adage of, you go fishing where the fish are.
Yep, absolutely.
Beau, for those that may not have caught our last conversation together, if you could tell us a little bit about Dickson and your role there and what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be brief on my part, but so Dickson, a 40-year-old firm out of Northern Nevada. We also have locations in California, Northern California, as well, up at North Star, Truckee, and Portola. But in totality, we have 300 plus agents, 10 offices. I've been in the business for going on about 7+ years now. Started out as an agent, kind of grew into the management leadership of where I am today as president, and work alongside Nancy Fennell, who's our CEO, and really kind of just helping to grow the company, but also develop the agents. I grew the Keenan group, which was essentially my sister and I, and a part-time transaction coordinator, to about 30 million in production before becoming the president of Dickson Realty, and just took a lot from that experience and realized that I could apply the lessons learned there and the systems developed there to all the agents at Dickson and agents like Justin himself, to try to help them do more and accomplish more. So that's kind of where we sit today.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so obviously you've got a large, very successful brokerage. You've got a ton of experience yourself. Justin's a great agent, doing, 60 to 72 units a year, basically on your own, not like, these big teams with 20, 30 agents on them. So I think whichever side you happen to be on in the real estate space, you guys are both in sort of an enviable position. So I think this will be interesting. Justin, so you're now with Dix and you're now working with Beau. How long have you been there?
Just 3 months. So this is relatively new. I have been with a number of brokerages in my short 10-year career. I tend to get kind of antsy after a couple of years, and I want a new challenge and a new, cat toy to play with, kind of thing. So I have switched, and as we all know, this is a fairly cannibalistic sort of world, in the sense that the more you succeed, the more brokerages try to recruit you. And
Mm-hmm.
so Beau and I have been friends for, probably 5 years. We go, to lunch once every 6 months or so, and he just stayed in touch. He has sort of, I would say, I call it soft recruited me for the last 3 or 4 years. Um, I finally kind of came to the conclusion that it would be a good move for myself and my wife to make the switch, and we did. And I'm incredibly happy. I have zero regrets. I feel like it's going to be. It already has proven to be, but it's going to be a very meaningful switch from the standpoint of being able to continue to grow my business, because I'm never capable of sitting back and going, yeah, next year I want to do what I did last year. Like I don't have that mentality.
Needs to go up.
Yeah, and it's kind of, to the detriment of my wife. It's never enough for me. She'll ask me questions, like if we did 40 million in production, would that be enough? No, the answer is no. Eventually I'll run out of bandwidth and I'll have to grow my team and I'll have to add more agents, and I'm capable of doing that and open to it down the road. But
So, what, without getting into necessarily specifics or saying anything bad about anybody, but what was it that caused you at your previous company to say maybe we should start looking for something else?
2 brokerages ago, I was with, again, we won't use names. I was with brokerage A, which was a fairly expensive place to hang your license. Um, and after a few years, we just didn't feel like we were getting out of it what we were putting into it as far as how much we were paying per year. So we switched to what we will call brokerage B, that was kind of a discount brokerage, and the amount that you pay in was significantly less. And so, that was, our perspective then was, okay, we'll keep more of our money. Um, but, you kind of get what you pay for. And there was minimal resources by way of growth, helping you grow or support, or brokerage type things, as far as, when you have to have deal doctoring for a broker, or, things from that standpoint. So it was contradictory to what we thought was our strategy for the last 3 years, in terms of keeping more of your money, paying less out, and that kind of thing. Because Dickson is not a discount brokerage. But, again, to me, after having 6 Zoom calls with Beau over the course of a couple of weeks to get, all of my questions answered and those kinds of things, I was a true believer that, that the things that Dickson would offer me would result in so much growth that the difference in cost would be really totally irrelevant. So
So just to paraphrase for a second, I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but when you were at brokerage A, you were paying a good amount of money, but the value, I guess, sort of waned over time. Is that accurate?
yeah, I mean, I will say that my broker at that brokerage was exceptional, like great broker. But the other benefits for being with that company, and it was a national, company that, has a good reputation, et cetera. But I never thought that moved the needle for me. I never thought that if I went into a listing appointment, that I would get a listing by being with brokerage A. And so if you can't hang your hat on that, then why are you spending a fortune to be with that brokerage?
So you're at company A, decide to go to company B. Company B, you were paying less money, but again, there wasn't really, I guess, an ROI. I don't know if that's fair to say or not. And then you kind of jump over to Dixon. Um, so, Beau, at this point in the story, so where are you? Is Justin on your radar? Have you guys had communication?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So when he jumped from A to B, trust me, I cried myself to sleep that night because he broke my heart. Because we were definitely in talks even back then, um, and like to Justin's point, I mean, we kind of had this natural friendship in the business. We had, and I forget who reached out to who, but we had a lunch and we just talked shop and we talked about all the different things that we were doing. It was just super natural, which was great. So I appreciated his camaraderie, first of all, and second, realized he was what we kind of call a ninja agent through and through, which is the philosophy that we believe in, which is all about building relationships or relationship-based selling. And I realized that that's what Justin does in his business, which is, again, how I built what was the Keenan Group at the time. So when I found out that he might be looking to go somewhere else at that point, I was going to do what I had done in my own business to build sales, which was just A, build a relationship, and B, provide value. And so when he decided to go with broker B, for me, it was like, you know what? I think there's still a chance in time that if I provide value and then I continue to nurture our relationship, that Justin would be here at Dickson. And so it actually happened in less time than I thought it might. I thought it might even take a couple more years. When we did start to have an actual real conversation about coming to Dickson, I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, oh, great, this won't be as long as I thought I might have to nurture. uh, but the great thing about it was everything was very organic. And that's, again, recruiting for me. And now that we've been focusing on it at Dickson just in the last 6 months has been exactly that. I'm very low pressure. I've never been high pressure. And that worked out really well just in sales. And it's done well in recruiting as well. And the relationship that I built with Justin was one that was actually, again, very genuine. And so we're friends. And I feel that way with, again, our agents at Dickson. We are just that way. I mean, we're truly family. People use that a lot, right? And I don't mean to
It's
say
not a
that.
platitude if it's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the Dickson family feel has been through and through for the past 40 years, and I'm just grateful to have him here, formally a part of the Dickson family.
So Justin, so you decide that you're going to leave brokerage B because the fees and this and the value or maybe lack thereof. What was it about your relationship with Beau, or what was it about the company that made you decide to start having these more serious conversations?
Well, again, it was just an organic sharing of information and a genuine friendship that that I had with Beau, and so I always liked and respected him, and I always said, I told him that, although much to his dismay, there was a hiccup in between. But I always said, even when I was with Brokerage A, that if I ever switched, that I would go to Dickson. That would probably be my last stop. In our market, aside from the off shoot idea of forming my own brokerage down the road. But I don't think I ever have really any interest in that, because I don't want to babysit agents. I just want to produce. And I know what I'm good at. Um, so again, it just came from a very genuine perspective. And he doesn't hard sell you. He just provides you with value and gives you information. And, so it was organic. And, I think I made the decision to make the switch for the right reasons, as opposed to the shiny new object, or uh, the signing bonus of a Cadillac, which I didn't get in this case. I wanted one, and but it just wasn't offered. So you got to do what you got to do. But
So Beau, obviously, it sounds like you guys are friends and you guys get along well. How do you make the switch from we're friends to I want to recruit you?
So, in regards to that, I think that the entire time that Justin and I had the relationship of talking, I always had in the back of my mind I wanted him at Dickson, but I never really led with that. I would always give him a bad time and kind of poke him and say, hey, when are you coming over? But it was, again, very, very natural. But I think what really changed the conversation to be a heavier, hey, let's really take a look at how Dickson can help your business, was at the beginning of the pandemic. We're 2 or 3 weeks in. I was working 90, 100 hours a week because I was just calling all of our agents and taking the time to talk to them about what was going on, both in their personal lives as well as in their work lives. And then it hit me, there's people like Justin and other agents that I have close relationships with that aren't at Dickson, that I probably should just reach out to them as well. And so that was one of the first, I think, great steps that helped Justin and I to have this conversation about, well, what is Dickson really doing right now? Here we're in kind of a time of need and crisis. What is the current broker that Justin have doing for him? And then what is Dickson doing? And he flat out asked, he's like, what are some of the things that Dickson's doing? Like, let me know. And so I shared that with him. And I think that for him sparked that interest as to, okay, wow, they actually are doing a lot and providing a lot that I'm not getting. So there might be something here, even though Beau has always suggested to come over, that I want to look further into. And then it really did turn into more of kind of like, okay, we're going to talk specifically about coming to Dickson. And I think that's, again, goes back to that whole family thing. I think the difference that Justin felt was there was someone who had this individual care for what him and his family were doing and what their goals were, and was going to reach out and do that. And I think at broker B, or the option where he was before. I just think they don't have enough management to provide that type of one-on-one value or service to all their agents. We're here at Dickson, that's something we pride on. Hey, if you have a question or you have something you need help with the broker, you can contact us 24/7. And Justin and I have had conversations at all hours of day, night,
Yeah.
weekend, and
Bo loves it when I text him on a Sunday and just go, "Hey, call me when you have a couple of free minutes." So
anyways, so really, that was the turning point, Philip, was just, I think, during the pandemic when it hit, and taking the time to reach out, and it just turned into it did turn into more of the recruiting aspect when it piqued his interest that I was taking time just to reach out, right?
So Justin mentioned a couple of times, Beau, that you just provide value. What are some of the things that you said or told him or shared with him to provide that value? Like, what is an example of that concretely?
Yeah, so concretely, I think the best example I can give during that, again, initial pandemic, we, going down to kind of the social lockdown. Luckily, real estate was deemed essential, so we could still work, but it's, you're now working from home. It'd be pretty easy to feel like you don't have any relationship with your brokerage now. You're kind of an island to yourself. We put together all kinds of content for the agents to say, okay, hey, we're not going to see you in person now for quite some time. So we put together, it's about a 10-page, what did we call it? Not necessarily a pandemic playbook, but it was, a work from home playbook. It was, okay, here's all the things that you need to focus on at this point in time. We provided videos, content from all of our different affiliates, like leading real estate companies of the world, put together a bunch of information from Ninja, and we just gave the agents the process of, here, we've never been through this before, but we know this is going to help you. And so I shared that with Justin, and I think him seeing that was like, wow, here, they went out of their way to really put together a plan for us in what is, uncharted territory. So I think that was one thing that really made a difference.
Oh, that's great. That's a great idea, a great tool, and sharing, internal stuff with potential recruits obviously demonstrates your value very, very easily. So Justin, tell us, so you mentioned that you guys had a bunch of Zoom calls without getting into details necessarily, but what was this recruiting process like from your side?
well, I'm naturally curious, and I always have like a zillion questions, and then my zillion questions leads to another zillion questions. So it was, like I needed the time to be able to, actually chat with Bo in order to like get a feel for things and get questions answered, and figure out, like where concretely my business would grow as a result. I had to sort of sell myself on it, but I think with other recruiters, that it's kind of like, here's my 10-minute speech, and let us know when you want to sign up, kind of thing. And Bo, I don't know what his recruiting process is with others, but at least with me, it was really thorough, and it was, like we would talk on Zoom for 45 minutes, hour at a time. Um, and a lot of that conversation is organic because we are friends and because we're like-minded in terms of our perspective. But still, like, it's not something that he had to do. So he did, and he went out of his way to do it and make time for me and get everything answered, and all of those kinds of things. So that meant a great deal to me. And so that made the process and any questions that I had or any doubts that I had kind of vanish.
Was your wife on these calls as well?
No, no,
Okay.
I like to keep her in the dark. This is a very, she only needs to know what she needs to know. That's it. The rest of the time, just, get out there and sell property. No, I didn't just because it just didn't serve any purpose until I knew that we were going to switch, or I knew that I was set in my mind after getting my questions answered that it was worthwhile to bring it to her, because giving her all of the back and forth it is a waste of time. So if I had all these conversations, but the end conclusion was that I didn't want to make the switch, then why
Why
burden her?
bring her into it? And
Yeah,
sure.
why burden her with all that? Um, so it was literally when I carved out 2 hours on a Saturday night and just said, "Hey, I want to sit down and I want to share with you everything that I've learned from talking with Beau and the Dickson why." And just kind of again, not selling her on it, but just giving her my thoughts as to why. And she always says that we may have a different process, but we always come around to the same conclusion. And that's why we're 15 years into marriage and we still like each other.
That conversation in organizations, that's referred to as internal sales, and that's helping your contact sell to the other person or other people in the organization. And whether you work with your spouse or not, that conversation happens with most agents that are looking to switch from one brokerage to another. So Beau, from your seat, I'm assuming you knew that Justin's wife was not on the calls and not on the Zoom calls. Did you intentionally arm him with those types of uh, points that he could talk with to sell internally? What did that conversation look like?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely, he kind of framed it as to, hey, I'm leaving Mindy out for the time being. Here's my questions. Most of her questions will be very similar. But he pretty much said, once he came to the realization of, okay, now we have to sell Mindy, Beau. we talked. We had a good. I think we prepped for about an hour, and then we did. I think he met with her Saturday night for a couple hours, and then we met on Sunday over Zoom, and we went over most of the questions that he had, but I then answered in front of Mindy, and then Mindy had some of her own questions at the end of the day. But yeah, I mean, it was at first it was kind of just Justin leading, and then we kind of worked together to say, hey, we really think this is going to help the Hertz team take their business to a new level. And the original hurdle was truly the fact that they were going to be actually spending more money on their brokerage. But as Justin kind of put it so well, it's not really a matter of how much we're saving, it's how much are we actually making at the end of the day. Nancy, our CEO, she joked, I remember when I first came to the business, she's like, I want you to be happy paying me 50% of your commissions because you are making so much and you're getting so much value from me. And I kind of like laughed at that. But
That's such a great statement.
being at the broker standpoint, I now get exactly what she was talking about. And that's, from my standpoint, has become my ultimate goal as well, is for the agents to say, yes, I do pay a lot. I don't need to shy away from that, but I get the value that I pay for, and it's helping me A, build my business, and B, accomplish my goals and my whys that are more than just the units and the volume. I mean, Justin and I have had heart-to-heart conversations about what he wants his future to look like, what those things are, that are how many people he wants to help mentor and coach. All these things that don't have to do necessarily with just transacting, but with how he wants to financially be 10 years from now. Like our conversation yesterday was truly about that. It was a conversation about an investment property that he's looking at. And we were just identifying the numbers, what made sense about the deal, and how to play it. And it really wasn't, again, about actually a transaction, more as to something that has to do with his and Mindy's financial future. Those conversations I love, and I welcome those from all of our agents. And I think that's different, right? That's not most brokerages. You're probably not having a whole lot of conversations with your agents about all that stuff all the time.
Certainly not with potential recruits, maybe existing agents, but not at
Yeah,
the recruiting phase
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
So Justin, let's fast forward to today. Obviously, you've joined Dickson. You've been there now for about 3 months. Um, how has it been? Was it everything you dreamed it would be? Everything you were promised?
It's everything I dreamed and more. I get chocolates and champagne on a daily basis. It's fantastic. No, I have had zero disappointment. And yeah, I mean, again, it's been great. I've leaned into the tools. So I'm seeing, effects from that, and how I'm seeing, possibilities in terms of how I can grow my business as a result. Um, and again, the thing that is invaluable in my situation, and Beau and my relationship with Beau, and having the ability to talk with Beau for 5 minutes or 10 minutes when I need to, is invaluable. And it's the kind of thing where you can't just look at what you spend versus what you get. It's not a direct correlation on that standpoint. You have to like look at it as far as like, what did I learn, or how did I figure out how to work with that deal, or how did I save that deal, or how did I get this offer accepted, or how did I get this listing, or things outside of the box of how I was able to buy an investment property but not overpay, or all those kinds of things. All of those are sort of intangible and invaluable, and they make just such a massive difference that I don't have any regrets, and I don't think that I will anytime in the future. So unless Beau leaves Dickson, in which case that's it. I'm out. Following him, or I'm retiring to Mexico. One of the two. So.
You kind of touched on an interesting thing there, that the what you're paying, the cost is not directly related to what you're getting. There's the sort of the sum of everything that's the value of something, right? And it's not just a one-to-one thing, but it's the time spent and the conversations, and like you said, the intangibles that really make up what a good brokerage is.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. And again, I see the big picture, and so the big picture for me is growth in my business, growth as an individual, growth in terms of making the kinds of investments that will mean that I have passive income when I choose to retire.
Beau, it just in summary of the whole process with Justin, is there any other thoughts or anything that you'd like to share?
Yeah, so just in summary from my side of this, on the brokerage side of it, I just want to share, we at Dickson haven't done a fantastic job of proactively recruiting, but kind of rested more on our laurels of being Dickson Realty, kind of the leading company in Northern Nevada, and agents reaching out to us. While that worked okay, what we found is just in this experience with Justin and Mindy is that here was an opportunity that we've realized now that there's a type of agent that we want and a type of culture that we've created here at Dickson that those agents will fit in. So going after those agents in this way, which is just building relationships, just like we teach our agents to sell, is how we're going to do it. And so kind of the three key characteristics that we're looking for that Justin fit to the T was, one, someone that's a team player and has the highest of ethical standards. Two, serves kind of as a connector in the community and just focuses on relationship based practices. And three is just improving the communities in which we live, work, and play. And Justin and Mindy do lots of those things to give back to the community as well. And that's kind of always been Dickson's philosophy, is just give back to the community. It typically comes back several fold, right? And so I just appreciate Justin and Mindy being willing to hear me out and to have this success story today, which is great. But I think going forward, just for all the brokers out there, don't make it too much of a science, where in reality it's the same thing that we're teaching our agents to do for their own clients, do for your recruits. Take the time to get to know them, know their personal whys and why they're in the business, and help them achieve that. And while they might not come over to the company right away, it might take some time. I think that's the organic and natural way to do it. And it's been working well for us.
Well, that's great. It's great to hear when things work out well like that. Justin Hertz, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Beau Keenan, always a pleasure.
Philip, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you coordinating.
My pleasure. And thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next week.
This was the Philip Gagnon Show. Be sure to visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Philip Gagnon Show and join in on the conversation. Access the show notes and discover some fantastic bonus content. The Philip Gagnon Show.